Hey everybody, Sean Holsinger here from holsingersflyshop.com. Bringing you the dry fly, it's the Bug Meister. This one is meant to imitate a stonefly. So if you're looking for a dry fly stone imitation, here's your chance. Gonna get into tying here first, and then I'll talk a little bit after the video. Here you're gonna see a picture of it, and then the material is to tie it. Okay, here you see the Bug Meister in the vise. Very cool looking stonefly pattern. Let's get into tying it. For a hook, we're using a Firehole. This is a 618 and it is a size 10 hook. Size 10, size 12 work great here. If you're wondering which to tie, maybe err to the size of the smaller. I always go smaller and only go up if I need to. First thing we're going to put on is the tail. For the tail, we're going to use some deer hair. This is spinning deer hair, natural. And I'm just going to take a small little clump of it, and I'm talking like 15 pieces maybe. And I want that to be about half the length of the hook shank there. So I'm going to set that on top and make a couple looser wraps to get it where I want. Make sure, there, that's a little bit long, as you see. That's a little bit longer than I want it. So I'm just going to shorten it up. And going loose on my wraps to make sure I get it where I want it, but also not to splay that tail out too much. Back by the tail, I want to go loose. And then as I come up here into the body, I'm going to tighten it up. And then we're going to trim the butt sections off and clean this up. Alright, and I'm going to try to finish that off about 2/3 of the way from the tail up. Next thing I want to put on is just a touch of flash in here, and to do that I am going to stick 2 pieces of Krystal flash on here. Tie them on, try to get it to go one down each side. There, like that. And then I'm going to cut them off the length of the tail. So I want these real short, just the length of the tail. And then I'm going to set that Krystal flash aside. And we're going to use that on the wing also, just to get a little bit of extra flash. Next thing we're going to put on is a piece of small copper wire. I want to go with the small here. This is for protection. It's not really to be seen. It's just to protect the Peacock Herl we're about to put on. Once we get that wrapped on, then I'm going to add 2 pieces of Peacock Herl. And I'm going to tie it in by the tips. Oops. I'm just going to pop those tips off, get them nice matched there, and then tie this down on the side. And right back to that tail. And then I'm going to come up here about 2/3 of the way. And we're going to wrap this Peacock Herl on and make a nice body here. So nice side by side touching wraps. Just to make a nice even body going up through here. And once I get up to that 2/3 point, I'm going to tie it off. And then we're just going to pop them off and set them aside for our head on this fly. Now I'm going to take my copper wire and tie this in, make counter wrap that just to protect that Peacock Herl, because it will get chewed up by the fish. And you know, if all that green stuff comes off and it turns to grayish brown, that's fine too. The trout won't care. They'll keep hitting it as long as it's floating. They're going to hit it. So pop my wire off and we're ready to go. Now we're going to put a wing on. I'm going to go back to my deer hair. I'm going to make a little bit heavier wing than I did the tail. So if I went like 15, I might go 30 on this one, but I don't want a whole lot here. I don't want it real thick. And I pull out a couple of the stragglers there. And where I want it to go is about halfway through that tail. As you see when I sit it there, I want it to go about halfway. So I'm going to lift it up just a hair, get it off that hook shank, and I'm going to make one wrap around my deer hair. This is going to help keep it on top of the fly, and it's just going to help wrap it down a little bit better. Then I'm going to make a couple looser wraps just so I get it, so I'm sure it's going to lay where I want. Once I get it laying where I want, then I'm going to tighten up my wraps and hold it in place. And there, I like that a lot. So now we're going to gather up all these butt sections, pull them up towards the eye there, and we're going to trim those butts off. Okay, and then we come in and we clean up our head. So I like this 12-watt Nanosilk. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. That's what I'm using here. I'm using some 12-watt Nanosilk. I like it because I can make some wraps and I'm not going to build up too much head on this fly. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in with these 2 pieces of Krystal flash, and I like to put 2 down each side. So I'm just going to lay it on the side, kind of pointing up, rolling with that wing. Make it a couple wraps, flip it over to the other side, and as you see there, I'm going up with the wing, and then we're just going to trim it off to the length of the wing. So that's it for the flash on this fly. Just enough to, maybe catch the fish's eye if the sun hits it right. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to go back to our 2 pieces of Peacock Herl we used earlier. And by the tips, I'm going to straighten them tips up again, and I'm going to tie this in on the side, on the head. And we're just going to let that hang back out of the way, because we're going to wrap that up here in a second. Now we're going to make a post on this fly. This is a parachute. So I'm using some EP fibers, and I don't want a lot here. If I twist this up, I want a nice tight piece there if I twist it up. And we're just going to tie that on about halfway. I have a third of the hook shank left there. I'm going halfway mark between my wing and my eye, as you see. So about 2 or 3 good tight wraps, so you lock it in place. And then a couple in front and behind, and then we're going to make a couple around that post. Try to get a couple around the post without them popping off. And once you make 2 or 3 around, go back onto the eye. The way I like to do it is I like to turn it over towards me. I'll turn the post towards me, hold it, and then make a couple wraps around. It's just a nice, easy way to control that post. There we go. And there you can see I got a little bit up the post with my wraps. That's good. And I did trap 1 or 2 feathers or deer hair, so just trim that off. And then I'm going to cut that to a manageable working length. Now, I'm going to take my feather for this, my hackle. I'm going to take it's actually a piece of Kree here. It's a nice long saddle hackle. But on the one side, as you see, I stripped off the fibers. I'm going to tie that in by the bare hook shank or feather shaft there. Tie it in at the eye. And then I'm going to take my wraps and I'm going to wrap this feather right up that post of that parachute there. Get that deer hair out of the way. And there we go. We got that going right with my post. That's where we want it. Now we're going to do the head on this. For the head, I'm going to go back to my 2 strands of Peacock Herl. I'm going to make about 3 wraps clockwise around my thread. And then I'm going to wrap this around the head of my fly. And I want to get a couple wraps behind, a couple wraps in front, and then crisscross back and forth in front and behind that post. And then I'll unwrap. If you go clockwise as you wrap your thread around the eye, it will continue to wrap. So unwrap that, wrap these Peacock Herls down to the eye, and then cut them off. Then once I know they're secure, I'm going to hop up, make 1 wrap around my post so we can tie off around this post, and then we're just going to wrap our hackle around the post to make our parachute. Get that nice and controlled there, and we're going to make about 5 or 6 wraps down the post, maybe a couple more, and then we're going to tie it off, and I'm tying it off around the post. So I'm going up and down over over that hook shank, trying not to trap the fibers of the hackle, as you see there. Nice and clean underneath, that's what I want. I'm going to cut that saddle hackle off. I can trim up my post here right now, trim it to the length I want. Shorten it down, make it nice and visible there. And then we're just going to whip finish off around the post and we're all done. So, a little bit of time, but it works real nice. And then once it's all done there, you got a nice looking fly. Just flip it upside down. Make sure you don't have any stragglers, like I got two hanging out of the way there. I like to clean that up. Just make it nice so make it look nice so it rides nice and flat on the water. And there you go, you got a nice finished fly. Okay guys, not a real hard fly to tie with a little bit of practice. It does take some practice to get the feel of deer hair. You know, getting it to lay on top nice, but you do that one wrap around the deer hair and then cinch it down. That helps a lot. And I try to share a couple techniques in there that's going to help make it a little bit easier on you. Don't use too much deer hair. That's another key here too. So you can easily put too much deer hair on that wing and the tail for that matter. So keep them both kind of sparse. Use the hackle on your post to help with holding the fly up, and it's going to fish well for you. So this is one of those flies that I had a customer request for me to tie. He fishes out west, and he actually sent me one that I had to figure out what the body material was because it was so tore up, and it was Peacock Herl. I've never fished this fly before, and I'm tying it for a customer to take out west with him again this year. So have fun tying, guys. That's what tying's all about. Learning new patterns, learning new techniques, and this one might have a couple new techniques in it, and that's why I share these. All your fly tying is just building on one technique after another, and once you learn the different techniques, you can plug them all together and tie any fly you want to tie. It's not really that hard. So have fun and reach out to me if you have any questions or you want me to tie anything. Like I said, this was a custom order so that I just figured I'd share. If you want me to tie any custom orders, reach out to me at holsingersflyshop@gmail.com. And any of the materials, like always, guys, please go to our website, holsingersflyshop.com, and we'd be happy to help you out, get you the materials you need. So thanks for watching, guys. Until next week when I bring you another video, I'm Sean Holsinger.